my name is Clarice Bouwer and I'm a software developer at DSTV based in Johannesburg. I work on the DSTV Now website, which is one of our online products that make it easier for you to watch your favorite shows from anywhere. I'm a compulsive retweeter. You can follow me on Twitter at cbelows, and I blog somewhat inconsistently at the moment at corporateprogrammer.com. Look how happy I look here. A little crazy, but happy. But appearances can be so deceiving, because deep down, I really feel like a fraud. Last year, I finally identified that I have imposter syndrome, and it's possible that some of you here occasionally have it too. In fact, research says that about 70% of the population worldwide experience this, and it often goes unrecognized. So I think the more that we talk about it, the more we can help each other out. And that's why I'm here today. So we'll start by looking at what imposter syndrome is, then explore some of the signs that can help you identify your inner imposter. And lastly, we'll look at some techniques that can help you when and if this ever applies to you. Now, the term was coined in 1978 by two clinical psychologists and is also referred to as the imposter phenomenon or fraud syndrome. Wikipedia says that it doesn't have a standard definition, but explains that it is a concept describing high-achieving individuals who are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. Now, it's not a mental illness, but it's basically just the way people react in certain situations. Essentially, you feel like you are tricking everyone around you into believing that you are more competent than you actually are, and really hope that no one finds out. Compliments and positive feedback probably make you feel uncomfortable, so you don't believe them. And even when you're faced with evidence to the contrary, you'll tell yourself and others around you that you probably succeeded because of dumb luck, your charm, a mistake or error, good timing, knowing the right people, or being in the right place at the right time. When you feel like this, you could react negatively without realizing it. So identify and understand your inner imposter so that you can deliberately change your behavior. If you don't address it, it can lead to self-destructive behavior, where you become obsessive, get anxious, depressed, and even burnt out because of the stress and the pressure that you put yourself under. And it affects the people around you too. Your relationships take strain, and it can cause friction in your teams. Now, there are many signs that you can use to identify imposter syndrome, but I'm going to cover 4 of them with you today. The first sign is doubting yourself. Sure, we all doubt ourselves occasionally, but the red flag is when it's so bad that you can't function properly. If you have imposter syndrome, you've probably convinced yourself that you're not good enough. Now, I remember working on a massive project recently. It was technically complex and it involved a lot of people. We had a deadline that we couldn't miss because our products would simply stop working. This made a lot of people tense and stressed. Now, it's easy, or relatively easy, to write code and get it into production, but it's way more challenging getting a bunch of people to talk to each other and make the right things happen at the right time. So with so many people, it's hard to stay on the same page. There's a lot of confusion and contradiction due to misunderstandings and miscommunication. And I got lost. Started doubting myself more and more. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I second-guessed my code, my decisions. I believed everyone around me was smarter than me, and I lost confidence in my skills as a developer. So I did eventually convince myself that I wasn't good enough and that I should quit. But I didn't. Then after a lot of reflection, I came to realize that I have a voice inside my head. And that voice can be really mean, as it constantly puts me down, and I believe it. Now, who remembers Marvin the robot from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? It's like, he's a seriously depressed character. And it's like having him inside my head all the time, but a lot less funny. So words define your reality. You believe the words that you use to describe who you are. If you constantly put yourself down, you will feel negative about yourself. And if you don't address this, it can hold you back from doing even the most simplest things, like writing code, because you're afraid of being criticized or wrong, prevents you from engaging with others, because you're afraid of what others might think of your ideas and your solutions. It kills your innovation and creativity because your mindset is so bleak. And it can hold you back from grabbing amazing opportunities, like applying for a position, even if you don't check all those boxes. Now, the next sign I want to talk about is setting the bar too high. It's good to push yourself so that you can grow, but the red flag is when you set the bar so high that you burn out or are doomed to fail. In 2014, I was in a team that changed a lot. I would fill gaps that I saw because I couldn't miss a deadline and I couldn't let a project fail. Now, before I joined the team, I was used to working in small projects, or working in small companies and alone. So I did a little bit of everything. So instinctively in this team, I took on the roles where I saw the gaps, and I should have rather held the people accountable. Before I knew it, I was playing Scrum Master, product owner, designer, and developer, taking on the responsibilities and stress that came with each role. I worked so hard to keep everything afloat that I did eventually burn out. To top it off, I started filling these gaps 6 months after I joined the company while I was ramping up. And it was the first time I joined a large corporate, and the ramp up was insane. I mean, there's so many people, systems, servers, products, and if you've ever dealt with the network constraints of an internet proxy, not cool. Anyway, I realized that I keep increasing the difficulty level and expect myself to excel, not taking into account the emotional, physical, and mental strain that I put on myself. Then when you set the bar ridiculously high for yourself, the problem is that you set the bar ridiculously high for those around you. And then no one can live up to your expectations. So if you work long hours, you expect others to do the same. If you learn new tech in your spare time, then others must too. And dare someone not do TDD if it's something you strongly believe in and expect. Now, it's important to know that people focus on different things in life, and it's unfair for us to impose what we think is important on them. And the same applies for finding the perfect job. Startups look cool, right? I mean, they look really attractive. You work here, learn lots, make cool stuff, have fun. Bigger companies like Google, Facebook, Netflix, and Spotify, I mean, they look attractive because of the benefits and the products that they make. And they're advertising a culture of learning and innovation and fun. But what we don't see is the pain, the problems, and the flaws, and the constraints, all the negative things that these companies have to deal with that we probably deal with too in the jobs that we work in now. So we are suckers for marketing. I mean, it can be for our jobs, our lives. Facebook is basically the highlight reel of the people's lives around you. And this marketing is done so well that even if you're working for an amazing company right now, you probably want to leave because it doesn't meet the expectations that you have created in your mind. Your life compared to friends and family on Facebook might seem boring because you're seeing the fun, exciting stuff that they're sharing. So in life, we're so set on finding the perfect things, and we search so hard that we miss out on what's currently happening in our lives now. The third sign I want to talk to you about is making things perfect. Sorry, I keep wanting to look this side, but then stuff's not working so nicely. Yeah. So making things perfect. This is basically the inner perfectionist. Now, it's good to focus on consistency, aesthetics, and quality, but the red flag is when you can't let go because it's not perfect. Now, if I think back at the creation of my blog, Corporate Programmer, I remember how the pursuit for perfection absolutely exhausted me. I did create it for a few reasons. I wanted to give back to the community by sharing my perspective. I wanted to have a platform to showcase my skills for my career, and also wanted to tinker with different technologies. I ended up choosing something lightweight and ended up going with Jekyll, which is flippin' awesome, and used Grunt for workflow automation, such as the image resizing, linting, the minification, and so forth. I created the site from scratch multiple times. I wasn't happy with the interface, so I kept redesigning it. I restructured the folder contents, reworked the automation, completely customized the Jekyll integration, all because I wanted it to be perfect for launch. I ended up investing so many hours into this website that I became obsessed. I'd come home from work and go directly to my laptop where I'd work the rest of the night on it. And what happened? I ended up neglecting my health, so I didn't eat well, I skipped meals, didn't exercise or stretch. I didn't get enough downtime or rest. I stopped socializing with friends and family because I was way too busy, and I got frustrated because no matter what I did, there was always these flaws on the website. Now, the same can happen with our code. Keeping a code base maintainable is a really good thing, but where do we stop? I mean, sometimes we become fanatical. So we could refactor stuff for years for it to be perfect, but that isn't feasible. And then again, like, what is perfect code? And how many times have you looked at code and thought, what the hell is going on here? And you do get blame. You sink deep down into your chair because you wrote that code. And this is a good thing. It's a sign that we are growing. Our knowledge and skills will grow with time. But instead of pouring hours and hours into perfecting something, we should settle for something that is good enough. When it satisfies the needs of the business and the customer, then it's good enough. Now, don't confuse this for an excuse to write bad code. What I do think is we need to try our absolute best with the knowledge, constraints, and resources that we have in this point in time, knowing that there is a possibility to fail, but without harming ourselves in the process. Now, the last sign I want to talk about is too afraid to fail. Fear is good when it makes you act and put in extra effort to achieve something. But it's a red flag when it paralyzes you. Now, last year, I learned to live outside my comfort zone, doing a lot of things that I don't generally do because I'm too scared of what people are going to think of me, or I don't feel confident enough to try. Now, as you can see, the scariest thing that I signed up for was public speaking. Yeah. Okay, so the idea seriously makes my knees weak, my heart race, I get anxious and nauseous, my throat closes, and I feel like I can't breathe properly. I know I'm not alone in this. I think the stats are about 70% of the population also experience this, or 75% of the population. But now the problem is I don't have to wait to get onto the stage to feel this way. In fact, the day my talk got accepted, I started struggling to cope with this. And I was getting panic attacks, and no amount of logic could save me. The advice and suggestions and tips that I got, although it was great, didn't help. So it was bad. But I wanted to push through this fear, so I did 4 things. The first was to fully commit to it. I tweeted that I'd be talking, and I made sure my travel and accommodation was booked. That made it considerably harder for me to back out. The second was to breathe. So in order to deal with panic attacks, I needed to breathe deeply. This helped me think clearer, and it tried to soothe the anxiety for a little bit. Preparation is key. I think I rehearsed the speech about, I don't know, 8 times. It's insane. And then having support, not going through this alone. So having a different perspective, coaching, made it a lot less terrifying. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. Now that we can identify and name our imposter, we can befriend it by taking back control of our lives or our minds. It can be that cautious friend that keeps you and your ego in check, which can be quite humbling. Having that balance keeps you from being overconfident and arrogant. So let's have a look at some of those techniques that can help you find your balance. You can start by being honest with yourself. Juggling all these feelings can be scary and overwhelming. Accept that you're experiencing imposter syndrome and that you can work through it. There are different levels of imposter syndrome. There's actually a test. What I'm currently experiencing is like intense levels. So if you want to find out about that test, just speak to me afterwards. Know that you are in control. You may feel like a victim, but your mind is creating this bleak reality. So even though it doesn't feel like it, you can be in control. Calm your mind. If your mind is too busy, you can't focus and you can't be in control. The hardest thing for me to realize is that you are not your thoughts and feelings. These things come and go, so you don't have to be consumed by them. What does help is to practice meditation and mindfulness practices in this case. Be kind to yourself. Being your own worst enemy isn't going to get you anywhere. So accept yourself for who you are and be careful how you talk about yourself. You are the most important person in your life, so look after yourself. Reflect. If you want to improve, you can reflect by finding out what went well, what didn't go well, and how can you improve in the future. Talk about it. Remember that you are not alone. Like, I don't know if you want to have a show of hands to say if you feel this way or not. Like, you are not alone. Get a different perspective of your performance and behavior by talking to the people around you. You can also give back by sharing your experiences and perspective. Get support. I found a mentor with a similar personality to me and got a lot of guidance in situations where I struggled. Did not always see eye to eye, but the support was phenomenal. Take each day by day. It's a bumpy road, and some days are good, and others not so much. I have to put in a lot of effort, and some days I feel like I'm right back at the beginning. Get outside your comfort zone. So don't stagnate in this comfortable place. Do something that scares you, something that you haven't done before, learn something new. And when all else fails, be awesome instead. Why go through life missing out on opportunities, constantly putting yourself down and being scared of how other people see you? You are not immortal, so take your life back. Thank you for your time. My name is Clarice Bouwer, and I am a recovering imposter. Feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter @cbillows or come speak to me afterwards. Thank you.